what are some of the safeguards that have been built in? I think the first point that we need to understand that the entire gamut of land laws which was existing in Jammu and Kashmir was probably a product of its time, maybe appropriate to the time when it was introduced, but it was essentially meant to serve an old agrarian rural economy. Quite obviously, many of these laws had become outdated, obsolete, and as new laws kept getting added, the system of land laws, when looked at as a whole, suffered from not only redundancy and obsoleteness, but also ambiguities and contradictions. And in many cases, the laws that were in existence were clearly regressive and anti-people. Now, how was this so? Let me give you a few examples. The Big Landed Estates Abolition Act fixed a ceiling of 182 canals, but the act was superseded by the Agrarian Reforms Act of 1976, which refined it, made a provision of 100 standard canals, yet both the BLEA and the Agrarian Reforms Act 1976 continued to coexist. The Agrarian Reforms Act of 1976 is, as we speak, 44 years old. We are in 2020 now. Yet, this act prohibited the selling of any land that was available to the tiller. So, as a result, even after a generation had passed and even after 44 years, this land could not be sold or transacted. What was the consequence? You had a large number of so-called Benami transactions and restrictions for the next generation to transact this land, which was otherwise legitimately made available to the tiller. Another example, the Agrarian Reforms Act of 1976 had ended tenancy, but the Tenancy Stay on Ejectment Proceedings Law 1966 still continues to be in force. There are still more interesting examples. We had a very good law, the Prohibition of Conversion of Land and Alienation of Orchards Act 1975. Now, quite correctly, this law prohibited the alienation of orchard lands, which was a laudable objective. But surprisingly, it also restricted the creation of new orchards, and to create a new orchard, the permission of the government was required. Similarly, the Right of Prior Purchase Act placed severe constraints and restrictions on an owner's right to dispose of his own property, so much so that neighbors and others had a so-called right of first refusal, both in urban and rural properties, restricting the rights of an owner to dispose of his own properties. I can go on and on and on about some of the ambiguities, contradictions, difficulties in the old laws. I mean, just to give one or two more examples. There were different definitions of family across acts and laws. Provisions for conversion and alienation of laws were different across laws. So, at the end of all this, we had a gamut of land laws which was sometimes inconsistent, sometimes ambiguous, sometimes contradictory, and at other times clearly opposed to the interests of the public at large. So there was a need to, if I may say so, straighten up, clean up the system, and provide a set of land laws which was simpler, which would prevent unnecessary litigation, and which would prevent discretionary interpretation of these laws. And as we know, any discretionary interpretation of laws leaves aside scope for vested interests to operate. So this is the background which I thought I will clarify to you. So what has been done now? As I have said, 11 laws have been repealed. And which are the laws which have been repealed? Again, I will give you a couple of examples. So laws which were either redundant or obsolete, or as I said, people unfriendly, they have been repealed. Good example, tenancy stay of ejectment proceedings has been repealed. Now there was a law called the Jammu and Kashmir Utilization of Lands Act, which empowered the state to take over any land which had not been cultivated for 2 years. This has been repealed. There was the J&K Floodplain Zones Regulation and Development Act 2005. Now why has this been repealed? This has been repealed because all the provisions of this law are already available in the Water Resources Regulation and Management Act 2010. I spoke to you about the problems with Right of Prior Purchase Act. This has been repealed. Similarly, tenancy stay of ejectment has been repealed. Consolidation of Holdings Act 1962, Land Improvement Scheme 1972, Prevention of Fragmentation of Agricultural Holdings Act 1960, Common Lands Regulation Act 1956. These are some of the 11 laws which have been repealed. But I must clarify here that many of these laws had interesting and people-friendly provisions, and each of these provisions we have taken care to ensure that these are saved in the new acts or the new codes which have come about. For example, Section 20B of the Big Landed Estates Abolition Act has now been saved as 133B of the Land Revenue Code. The relevant provisions of the Consolidation of Holding Act 1962, Land Improvement Scheme 1972, Prevention of Agricultural Holdings Act 1960 have all been brought together, consolidated and saved under Section 23 of the Land Revenue Act. In fact, the focus has been to work towards a land revenue code which is consistent, which is clear, which is unambiguous. So we have attempted to take out as many relevant provisions as possible and place them at appropriate positions in the land revenue code, so that like in the rest of the country, the land revenue code, the Land Revenue Act becomes a code, a uniform and a consistent set of laws. So similarly, as we go forward, I will further explain what we have done. So anyway, suffice it to say at this point of time that 11 laws have been repealed, and I have explained to you the reasons why each of these laws have been repealed, and how even when we have repealed an act, certain critical clauses of that act have been taken out and placed at appropriate positions in the Land Revenue Act. Now the second set of laws are the laws which have been modified. Now, which are the laws which have been modified? Primarily 4 laws. 1, the Agrarian Reforms Act of 1976. 2, the Land Revenue Act of 1939 AD. 3, the Land Grants Act. And 4th, the Jammu and Kashmir Development Act. Now let me talk a little about the Agrarian Reforms Act. I have seen some comments which have tried to insinuate that the new land reform system has tried to do away with the land reforms which were a hallmark of Jammu and Kashmir state. The reality is actually quite the contrary. As I said, the Big Landed Estates Act had in any case been superseded by the Agrarian Reforms Act. So the redundant provisions of the Big Landed Estates Act have been done away with. But as I said earlier, some of the relevant provisions such as 20B have been saved, and the Agrarian Reforms Act stays very much in place. In fact, if anything, the provisions of the Agrarian Reforms Act have been tweaked to remove some of the people unfriendly provisions. For example, I mentioned about the fact that people who had legitimately got possession were unable to sell. So, the amendments in the Act permits sale by the tillers after 15 years of ownership. Certain provisions in the old Act allowed erstwhile owners to continue to file resumption applications. That provision has again been done away with by providing a sunset clause and therefore disallowing new resumption applications by landlords. There is a time-bound disposal provided for all pending and residual matters. So as I said, if anything, by permitting sale of land by the tillers, by disallowing resumption applications, and by providing for time-bound disposal, we have ensured that the law has become more progressive, more people-friendly, and cleaner. Now, what about the Land Revenue Act? As I said, the attempt has been to develop the Land Revenue Act as a land code to provide contradictions, to prevent contradictions, to avoid multiplicity of laws, and to provide for certain progressive provisions such as setting up of a revenue board, regional planning for regulating use of land. The important provision that I want to draw your attention to is that under the new land laws, agricultural land can only be sold to agriculturists. Now, how is agriculturalist defined? Agriculturist has been defined as a person who cultivates land personally in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. A lot of people, as I said, have spoken about there not being adequate safeguards. I wish to emphasize and re-emphasize that agricultural land can only be sold to agriculturalists, and agriculturist is defined as somebody who cultivates personally within the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. So by implication, agricultural land cannot be sold or alienated to anybody who is from outside the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. In fact, we have gone one step further. Anybody who is a domicile of UT, anybody who is a who is a resident of UT but not an agriculturist, means not in personal cultivation, can also not buy agricultural land. The terms agricultural land and agriculturist have been unambiguously defined, and I only want to draw one more attention to one more point, which is that the term agriculture has been expanded vastly in scope to include not just agricultural activities but also a whole series of horticulture activities, a whole series of agro-based activities, including fallow land, animal husbandry, poultry, etc. So the provision of this one clause alone will ensure that more than 90% of land in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, which is agricultural in nature, remains protected, inalienable, and with the people of Jammu and Kashmir. I mentioned to you about the other progressive provisions, the Board of Revenue, for example. which is a multi-member body now, and which has been given various powers to regulate, powers to manage, powers to draw up development plans, etc., etc. So I spoke about land reforms and how we have tried to protect that. I spoke about how more than 90% of the land will be protected, agricultural in nature, and this will include horticulture, this will include land in other agro-based industries, etc., etc. And I also mentioned about how we have tried to remove the ambiguities. Now the third and the relevant element in the matrix is the Jammu and Kashmir Development Act. Now the Jammu and Kashmir Development Act is a 1970 act which has gone through many modifications. But what have we done in the latest modification? We have provided for master and zonal development, and most importantly, we have provided for industrial development through statutorily setting up of an industrial development corporation. Now there have been some comments about this also. But what I want to clarify is that the concept of an industrial development corporation is not a new concept. We already have a SIDCO here which has been engaged in the job of developing industrial estates. So what is new? What is new is that these industrial development corporations have been set up through a statute rather than through the Companies Act, which gives them certain powers to protect the interests of the state here insofar as it relates to ejectment, insofar as it relates to recovery of dues, insofar as it relates to taking action against people who may be non-compliant with the laws of the state. Now there is one element I want to raise and draw your attention to. A lot of people have commented on the so-called Section 3 of the Act, which deals with strategic areas. And I have seen commentaries in the press saying that this is all encompassing, this will permit the army to occupy large areas, this will give unbridled powers to the army. So I thought, let me dwell on it for half a second. Now to begin with, Section 3 of the Land Development Act has absolutely nothing to do with transfer of any land to the armed forces. The transfer of land to the armed forces or to any other body will, for that matter, continue to be governed by the acquisition and requisition laws which we have at the moment and other relevant laws. All that this section does is exempt the armed forces from operation of certain aspects, developmental aspects, and places the onus on the armed forces themselves to ensure that those developmental parameters and those development regulations are met. How does it do it? Now, what are the 5 safeguards which have been provided? 1, this will only be applicable to lands which are legitimately acquired or legitimately available with the armed forces. 2, this can only be done if an officer not below the corps commander, who, as you are all aware, is an officer of the rank of the Lieutenant General, one of the senior most officers, only at a request at that level. 3, this can only be for operational and training purposes. 4, this can only be at the absolute discretion and satisfaction of the government that such conditions are met. And 5, the government is free to impose such conditions and restrictions as it may like to do so in order to ensure that no guidelines, building permissions, rules are violated. So I want to say in conclusion, and I want to clarify, that we have to look at this entire gamut of changes, adaptations as a package. And what are the components of this package? The components of the package are to ensure I'll just finish. I will leave you free to cover the other item if you want to cover. so no, I said it half in jest, but I am concluding. So the elements of this entire package are modernization, ending of obsolete, people unfriendly provisions, ending of ambiguities and inconsistencies, modernizing the entire system of land management, leaving no scope for application of discretion, operation of vested interests, and attempting to prevent unnecessary litigation. So we have to see these changes not only as a major step towards development and progress, but also as a continuation of the process of ushering in land reforms, revamping agriculture, and also providing for clean and rapid industrialization, leading to greater employment avenues for the youth. What I do want to say in conclusion, and I cannot overemphasize, as I have pointed out, the Land Revenue Act, especially if you look at section 133, provides for adequate protections against alienation of land to outsiders, and as I have pointed out, more than 90% of the land being agricultural is protected from this kind of alienation, and there are adequate safeguards available in the adapted laws. So thank you so much. Thank you for a very patient hearing. So if there are still some doubts persisting, my colleague Dr. Pavan Kotwal, who is also the Principal Secretary Revenue, will be happy to clarify. And of course, if there are any operational questions, Mr. Sanjeev Verma, the Divisional Commissioner, is available. So thank you very much.
आप सुन रहे थे जम्मू कश्मीर के प्रिंसिपल सेक्रेटरी रोहित कंसल को, और वो भूमि कानून के जो बदलाव हुए हैं उनको लेकर सीधे तौर पर जम्मू कश्मीर की जनता को संबोधित कर रहे थे, और सीधे तौर पर वो जम्मू कश्मीर के इस भूमि कानून में किए गए बदलावों के बारे में सारी जानकारियां दे रहे थे। और सबसे अहम जानकारी जो इस पूरे प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस में निकलकर सामने आई वो ये कि जम्मू कश्मीर के किसानों की जो जमीनें हैं वो केवल किसानों को ही बेची जा सकती है, और किसानों की परिभाषा वो दी गई है कि जो किसान अपनी जमीन पर खुद खेती करता हो।
देखिए, हमने समझा कि कंफ्यूजन है, दैट इज द रीजन वी आर ऑल हियर, एंड दैट इज द रीजन प्रिंसिपल सेक्रेटरी रेवेन्यू इज आल्सो हियर, बिकॉज वी वांटेड टू क्लैरिफाई दीज थिंग्स। बहुत सारी चीजें शायद पब्लिक डोमेन में नहीं थी, इसी वजह से हमने सोचा कि वील क्लैरिफाई सम ऑफ दीज इश्यूज।
So my next question is that because FC Revenue is also sitting by your side, recently Mumkin Khad was also issued. Sir, will you please throw some light on this, please?
Vishal,
Sir.
may I suggest that अभी हम इन लैंड लॉज की बात करते हैं. We are here. If you have any subsequent questions, we are all here. We'll answer them.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, excuse me, sir.
देखिए, मैं सिर्फ इतना कहना चाहता हूँ कि जो हमारे लैंड लॉज है ना, जिनके बारे में मैंने डिटेल में बताया, इसमें प्रोविजंस क्या है ये मैंने एक्सप्लेन किया. बट व्हाट आई वांट टू एम्फेसाइज एंड रीएम्फसाइज, तीन चीजें मैं एम्फेसाइज करना चाहता हूँ. एक, एग्रीकल्चरल लैंड के लिए प्रोटेक्शन है, इनसाइडर्स के लिए प्रोटेक्शन है, जिससे 90% से ज्यादा लैंड प्रोटेक्टेड है. दूसरा, जो हमने लैंड डेवलपमेंट लॉज में स्टैट्यूटरी कॉर्पोरेशन बनाई है, उसका पर्पस ये है कि अगर इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन के लिए जमीन की आवश्यकता है तो वो एक तरीके से तरतीबवार से दी जा सके ताकि कोई अननेसेसरी लैंड ना ले सके. सो अगर इंडस्ट्रीज डिपार्टमेंट को इंडस्ट्रीज डेवलप करना चाहता है तो जाहिर है उससे एम्प्लॉयमेंट आएगी, बट दैट हैज बीन डन इन अ प्रॉपर्ली रेगुलेटेड फैशन थ्रू द ऑपरेशन ऑफ दीज लॉज.
Yeah, sir, Sunil from India Today.
या प्लीज.
Yeah.
Please identify yourself.
Sunil from India Today,
हाँ,
Aaj Tak.
बोलो.
Yeah, sir, since, there was a lot of ambiguity as far as, agricultural land was concerned, because there were some people, some legal experts who were saying that even agricultural land can be bought by people from other states. Now that you have clarified that agricultural land will be, will not be allowed to, that can't be bought by people from other states, only agriculturists within the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir can purchase that land. So you have also said that 90% of the agricultural land 90% of the land in Jammu and Kashmir is agricultural, and only 10%. What you are trying to say is that only 10% of the land in Jammu and Kashmir can be bought by people from other states. Is that what you are trying to say?
No, Sunil, see, what I am trying to say is, I think you are flipping my statement around. What I am saying is that 90% of the land is agricultural. I mean, it could be, for example, एक डिवीजन में हो सकता है 93% हो, दूसरी डिवीजन में 89% हो. आई हैव गिवन यू अ ब्रॉड फिगर. दूसरा चीज मैंने ये कहा कि सेक्शन 133 जो है लैंड रेवेन्यू एक्ट का, अब obviously we don't have a time for a detailed presentation, but I'm very happy to share with you all the safeguards that have been built into this. What I'm saying is that, broadly speaking, agricultural land is protected. There are adequate safeguards. Insofar as other lands also are concerned, there are adequate provisions and clauses built into this so that it is done in an orderly fashion. This is all I'm trying to say.
So, but
और जो रिमेनिंग 10% की बात की ना, उसमें 10% में सड़क भी आएगी, बिल्डिंग भी आएगा, ऑफिस भी आएगा, मकान भी आएगा. So it is obviously incorrect to say that 10% is available for sale. That's the point.
But there is no requirement of PRC or domicile certificate for purchase of non-agricultural land.
First, as has been clarified by my colleague Mr. Rohit, that the protection, because majority of the land which is transacted generally is agricultural land, and agricultural land is the bigger chunk when we compare it with the commercial land. Roughly around, say, 95% of land in Jammu division is agricultural land, and in Kashmir around 90% of the land is agricultural land. So any alienation of that agricultural land is covered under section 133H, which is a new provision. And just for further clarification, I would just read it out, because then you will understand what the law says, and please interpret it as per your wisdom. It says, save as provided in this act, no sale, including sale in execution of a decree of a civil code, or for the recovery of arrears of the land revenue, or for some recoverable as arrears of the land revenue, gift or exchange, no mortgage of any land or interest therein, no agreement made by instrument in writing for sale, gift, exchange or mortgage of land shall be valid in favor of a person who is not an agriculturist. So you can't alienate land by virtue of sale, gift, mortgage or any other means to a person who is not an agriculturist.
Right.
Now we come to the definition of agriculturist. For the purpose of this section, the expression agriculturist means a person who cultivates land personally in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, as on such date as may be notified by the government. Such category of persons as may be notified by the government from time to time. So only a person who cultivates, means who is already cultivating land in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, is an agriculturist. So it precludes anybody else who is cultivating elsewhere. So you must be an agriculturist, you must be having a land already, and you must be cultivating it personally to come under the definition of agriculturist, and it is only this class of people who are permitted to engage in the alienation, means either buy or sell the agricultural property.
Sir, but is there requirement of domicile certificate for purchase of non-agricultural land in Jammu and Kashmir?
See, the law does not mention, this law does not mention anything about the domicile, because it has been clarified to you in the previous conference also, that is issued under a separate act, which is a Decentralization Act, and that particular document is valid for the purposes of obtaining jobs in the government in the state of Jammu and Kashmir.
Right.
So here anybody can buy the non-agricultural property,
Okay.
but agricultural property only an agriculturist
Got
of
it,
Jammu and
got
Kashmir.
it.
can buy, and the provisions and the safeguards are all given
Are
in the
given.
act. So just
Sir-
अरे मैं आप ही के लिए हूँ, आप why are you getting restless? मैं ये कह रहा हूँ कि 133A to 133H जो है ना, अगर आप देख भी लेंगे, and we'll be happy to share it
Yes,
with you,
yes.
इसमें सारे safeguards हैं, सारी provisions हैं, क्या क्या conditions हैं, वो 133 to 133 133A to 130
L तक.
to 133L 133A to 133L तक जो सारा दिया गया है, ठीक है. We'll be happy to share. This is already in public domain, but we'll share
can.
it.
You are talking of protection to agricultural land, but in these days, most of the agricultural land is being cultivated.
वो तो है ना, सनम को तो मैं देख रहा हूँ इधर. हाँ बताइए, is it Arun? Yeah, Arun, I can see you. Yeah, बताइए.
You are talking of protection to agricultural land, and at the same time you are saying agriculturist means the person who cultivates land in Jammu and Kashmir.
Yes.
But today, I think Daksab also knows it, and Vermaji also knows, most of the land in Jammu and Kashmir these days is being cultivated by people who come from UP and Bihar. Will they be agriculturists as per
No,
your
no, no, no.
definition of law?
वो लिखा हुआ है, वो तो आप अगर इसका C clause पढ़े ना, उसमें under the personal supervision of oneself or of any one member of family or by hired labor or servants on paid wages.
They are hired labor.
Don't worry, Arun.
Sir,
ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. I've been.
You have to be owner first.
we have
You
to
can get it
Sir,
tilled by
sir.
an unhired.
सर शाहनवाज
सर एक जो उमर अब्दुल्ला और महबूब मुफ्ती द्वारा कहा गया है न्यू लैंड लॉज पे कि J&K ऑन से, क्या आप इस स्टेटमेंट को गलत ठहराते हैं जो आप क्लैरिफाई कर रहे हैं?
भैया आधे घंटे से क्या बोल रहा हूँ मैं तो
This is
चलिए.
this is
Next,
not correct as per the laws.
next.
सर शाहनवाज फ्रॉम न्यूज नेशन चैनल.
शाहनवाज.
सर मेरा सवाल आपसे ये है, क्योंकि लैंड लॉ कुछ दिन पहले आया तो मैसेज भी क्लियर पूरे कंट्री में चला गया कि कोई भी आकर जम्मू कश्मीर में लैंड खरीद सकता है, खासकर नॉन एग्रीकल्चर लैंड खरीद सकता है. और ये सवाल सब जगह पूछे जा रहे हैं कि अगर कोई यूपी से आना चाहता है, बिहार से आना चाहता है और नॉन एग्रीकल्चर लैंड खरीदना चाहता है, तो उसके लिए क्या प्रोसेस होगा और उसमें कौन कौन से डॉक्यूमेंट्स जो हैं वो उनको देने पड़ेंगे. जम्मू कश्मीर में भी बहुत से लोग बड़े सालों से रहते हैं, वो भी इस चीज का इंतजार करते हैं. डीसी ऑफिस के सामने भी कई लोग पहले भी आए थे. तो क्या ये प्रोसेस आप लोगों ने बना दिया है और क्या क्या उनको चाहिए होगा?
इसमें rules हैं, कैसे
Yes, you are right. Then the regulations they are to be framed specifying what are the documents, minimum documents which are required to establish that you are a bona fide buyer to buy land in the non-agricultural category.
चलिए, if there are no other questions, हाँ, thank you very much. Okay, last question. Please identify yourself. जी बताइए.
सर सवाल मेरा ये है कि 370 के रखने के बाद पहली बात ही ये कही गई कि जो भी लैंड होगी उस पर कोई भी बात नहीं होगी, जो लैंड है वो आपके लिए सेफ रहेगी. कहीं ना कहीं यही वजह रही कि लोग अपने आप को ठगा हुआ महसूस कर रहे हैं. पर इस समय काफी लोगों में अफवाह ये भी उठ रही है कि 371 है वो भी लागू हो सकता है. क्या इसको आप क्लैरिफाई करते हैं कि 370 आने वाले समय पर आ सकता है या नहीं आ सकता?
देखिए मैडम, मैं तो केवल इतना ही आपसे निवेदन करना चाहूंगा कि मैंने आपको विस्तृत विवरण दिया कि जो लॉज अडेप्ट होके गैजेट में पब्लिश हो चुके हैं उनकी क्या मंशा है और उनके जरिए हम क्या अडॉप्ट करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं. और एक चीज मैं जरूर आपसे कहना चाहूंगा कि बहुत चर्चा में ये भी बात आई कि अन्य राज्यों की तरह यहाँ के रेजिडेंट्स को प्रोटेक्शन नहीं दी जा रही है. उसमें मैं ये स्पष्ट करना चाहूंगा, क्लैरिफाई करना चाहूंगा कि जो प्रोटेक्शंस दी गई हैं वो क्वाइट सिमिलर टू व्हाट आर बीइंग ऑफर्ड इन हिमाचल एंड उत्तराखंड है. और जैसे मैं पुनः दोहराऊंगा कि सेक्शन 133 जो है उसमें नॉन एग्रीकल्चरिस्ट पे बैन तो है ही है, साथ में उसमें एक पूरा विवरण है A to H में कि किन हालात में क्या हो सकता है, व्हाट आर दी सेफगार्ड्स.
Sir, one last question, sir. Pradeep.
Water channel का
हो गया मैडम आपका. प्रदीप जी.
Sir, one last question. As you said, 90% of land is an agricultural land. means 10% is left. Out of 10% also the state land has already been occupied under the Roshni scheme, which the government has decided to retrieve. So that means very less land is left for the people, whether they will be coming from here or any part of India. Now the question is, when you have decided to retrieve land, are you going to start it from the bottom, those people who have got 5 marlas, or the main influential bureaucrats, politicians, businessmen, or the X is going to start from that place?
प्रदीप, मैं इतना ही कहना चाहूंगा, आपने रोशनी के बारे में सवाल पूछा, मैं इतना ही कहना चाहूंगा कि there are orders subsisting of the Honorable High Court and the government is committed to ensuring that the orders of the Honorable High Court are implemented fully, firmly in letter and spirit.
Yes, and we will start from the top. And we will start from the top to bottom, not from bottom to top.
Thank you.
चलिए, thank you very much. Thank you. चलिए, धन्यवाद.